I was like, oh, I thought I was just like giving it a good
There he goes. Now he's
Yes.
doing
Oh,
I got
Yeah.
say.
trying to show us how to do it.
I've been practicing. I call to order the May 2024 meeting of the Mission Fulfillment Committee of the University of Minnesota Board of Regents. Good morning, everyone. Thank you to those who are joining us via the live stream video and those attending our boardroom via Zoom, including Regent Verhalen and Regent Farnsworth, who should be joining us via Zoom shortly. Let's welcome our student representatives. We have Nico Vasilopoulos from the Twin Cities campus, as well as Taiwo Aremu, also from the Twin Cities campus. Thank you both for being here. Look forward to your contributions. Chair Johnson is not with us today. I am the backup, so hopefully I can run as good of a meeting. With that, we'll turn into our agenda. Agenda item number 1, promotion and tenure and continuous appointments. Welcome Vice Provost for Faculty and Academic Affairs, Beth Lewis, who will join Provost Croson for a presentation on the overview of the process, followed by a vote, and then we'll hear from a panel of faculty members about their journey through this process. Provost Croson, would you like to get us started, please?
Thank you, Chair Kenyanya and members of the committee. For our first presentation to the committee today, we'll provide our annual report on the evaluation of faculty across the university system for promotion and tenure, and of academic professionals for continuous appointment. I'm grateful to be joined by Dr. Beth Lewis, our Vice Provost for Faculty and Academic Affairs, who manages the promotion and tenure process. You can go to the next slide. The Board of Regents policy on faculty tenure states that tenure and promotion imply selectivity and choice. They're awarded for academic and professional merit, not for seniority. The length and intensity of the review leading to the grant of tenure ensures the retention of well-qualified faculty committed to the university's mission. As you may recall, Dr. Lewis previously presented before this committee at our February meeting, where we discussed term faculty and instructional staff. During that presentation, we learned about the variety of classifications and categories of faculty and instructional staff, including adjunct faculty, academic professionals, or P&A instructional staff, term faculty such as clinical faculty in the health sciences, and finally tenure system faculty who advance the tripartite mission of the institution. It's that final group that we'll be focusing on today. In this presentation, we'll describe the length and intensity of the tenure and promotion review process and provide some additional data on success rates across varying demographics. The hiring decision is the first tenure and promotion decision. Faculty come from the best graduate programs in the nation and around the world, where they've undergone rigorous training. The search process is national and extensive to ensure that only faculty with clear promise of achieving tenure are hired. Once hired, junior faculty begin the probationary period. Probationary faculty establish a program of independent scholarship. Depending on their discipline and as defined by their unit, they publish peer-reviewed articles, books, book chapters, obtain a continuous stream of external grant funding, or produce exhibited creative works and artistic performances. They must show that they have become effective teachers and advisors, and that through their efforts, they advance our mission of service and outreach. During the probationary period, junior faculty undergo annual reviews, during which tenured faculty in the department discuss and vote on whether the candidate is making sufficient progress toward attaining tenure. If the department finds that insufficient progress is being made during the probationary period, individuals are provided additional support, counseled about seeking other career routes, or their probationary appointment is terminated. The formal tenure and promotion process takes place during the mandatory decision year, typically during the 6th year of probationary service. Each candidate must compile an extensive dossier of evidence demonstrating that they have met the specific criteria for tenure in their discipline. Although we discuss tenure and promotion together, they are not the same thing. There are three professorial ranks: assistant, associate, and what we call full professor. Both tenure system faculty, referred to in Board of Regents policy as regular faculty, and contract faculty, who we discussed extensively at our previous meeting, have rank. But tenure is only available to tenure system faculty. The criteria for promotion for contract faculty also rigorously looks at faculty activities, but may involve very different allocations of effort to research, teaching, or service, and may consider other activities, such as those related to clinical healthcare. I'm now going to turn the presentation over to Vice Provost Lewis to walk you through the promotion process in more detail.
Thank you, Provost Croson, Mr. Chair, and the members of the committee. The review process begins with the candidate producing a dossier. Evidence contained in a candidate's dossier includes reviews of teaching, samples of scholarship, and other relevant data. Several external reviewers in the discipline from people at comparable institutions in the United States and around the globe are asked to assess candidates' scholarship and write independent review letters that become part of the candidate's file. As part of the review process, faculty submit narrative statements describing their research, teaching, and service contributions. These statements help reviewers understand both the contributions themselves and the context in which faculty develop their work. To communicate the impact of the pandemic on faculty work, some faculty chose to include information in the review process on challenges they faced or new directions that they embarked on during this time. Additionally, as normal, we allowed tenure-track faculty members to request an extension to their probationary clocks if they had circumstances that warranted that extension. Our process has allowed us to both uphold our rigorous standards and be responsive to unique situations that occur during a faculty member's review period. This slide shows the process for review of tenure system faculty from the department through the collegiate or campus review and to the posted level. After the candidate's dossier is reviewed by external reviewers, the tenured faculty who are above the candidate's rank in their unit review the dossier in light of the department's written criteria and standards for promotion and tenure, and vote on whether to recommend tenure and promotion. The dossier with the department vote tally is forwarded to a college or campus promotion and tenure committee, and subsequently to the dean or chancellor of the college or campus for an independent review and recommendation. The dean's and chancellor's recommendations, along with all previously considered materials, are forwarded to the provost for a final review of the case before a recommendation is submitted to the board. The process for promotion to professor is subject to equally rigorous standards. I'll note that this is the process for Crookston, Morris, Rochester, and Twin Cities campuses. Candidates from Duluth campus follow a different process according to their union contract. At Duluth, the recommendation for tenure and/or promotion is made by the chancellor and then is sent to the provost to include with other recommendations to the Board of Regents. This process is also substantially similar to the review process for continuous appointments for academic professionals, the majority of whom are librarians. There are also a few continuously appointed academic professionals in the law school clinics. This slide shows the number of recommendations this year for each faculty group for tenure and promotion. 142 tenure or tenure track candidates were recommended for tenure and/or promotion. 134 term or contract faculty candidates were recommended for promotion and rank. 3 tenure track candidates were not recommended for tenure and promotion. As one part of our efforts to better understand and support the experiences of faculty at the University of Minnesota, we closely monitor our rates of tenure success. The metric for tenure success is determined by considering what happens to an entire cohort of untenured assistant professors 7 years after beginning their appointment at the University of Minnesota. This year, the cohorts of tenure track faculty we are considering began in 2014, 2015, and 2016. We check each professor's progress and note which of 4 possible outcomes apply. They either receive tenure and stayed at the University of Minnesota, or they received tenure but subsequently left the university. They left the university without tenure. They may have left before going up for tenure, or they may have left after being denied tenure, or they are still at the university and on the tenure track. There were 344 faculty who began their appointments in this 3-year group. After 7 years, 50.5% had received tenure and were still employed at the university, and 3% had received tenure and left the university. The 3-year average tenure success rate is 53.5%. This slide shows the breakdown of the tenure success rate by race and ethnicity and by gender. Your docket material contains more detailed information for a single year, but because the numbers are so small, it is more meaningful to look at the 3-year average. It is important to note that the size of the cohort, even when combined over a 3-year period, is still relatively small. These numbers are in the legend on both of these charts. As you can see here, Asian faculty had a higher tenure success rate than both white unknown faculty or faculty from underrepresented groups. It is also the case that Asian faculty are represented at higher rates in some of our health-oriented colleges, in business and in design, so there's likely a disciplinary effect that may compound this simple average. In the second graph on this slide, you can see the breakdown by gender. Women receive tenure at a slightly higher rate than men, but again, this may be confounded by disciplinary differences. We provide support for faculty development through our faculty's career. For example, we have worked with unit heads to help them provide effective mentoring for success as a part of the faculty evaluation process. Many departments provide structural mentoring to junior faculty in the form of an assigned senior faculty member or a faculty mentoring committee. We also have a wealth of resources and workshops that faculty can participate in to help them succeed, such as the Writing Hunkers program, training in grant writing, pedagogy, and time management. We want to both attract outstanding faculty and ensure that we provide them with the appropriate types and levels of support as they progress through their careers. We want all faculty to have the tools they need for an academically excellent career, and we understand that different individuals may need different tools. In order to ensure we are building and maintaining a world-class faculty that meets the needs of our students and our broader communities, we need to pay attention both to the metrics and to the effectiveness of strategies we use to help our faculty thrive throughout their career. I will now turn the presentation back to Provost Croson.
Chair Kenyanya, members of the committee will be happy to answer any questions about the process of promotion and tenure. At the end of our discussion, I will ask for a vote on this particular slate of candidates.
Thank you, Provost and Vice Provost. Regents, we'll turn to discussion. Regent Davenport.
Thank you, Vice Chair Kenyanya. You might have said this and I missed it, or in the materials. Was there flexibility or some kind of allowance for COVID?
Yeah, so there was an automatic extension that was given. They could opt out of that automatic extension. It doesn't mean that they had to, even if they took the extension, it doesn't mean they needed to use it. They still could have went up when they planned to. There were also special circumstances where they could request an additional year. For example, if they were not able to use their laboratory that they were supposed to, there was some delay, they weren't able to travel. There are various reasons. So even beyond that year, there were some additional years that were given out.
Thank you. I think that's fair.
Answer this question, Regent Davenport. Thank you. Regent Gully.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you so much for being here with us. I was wondering if it would be possible to do a follow-up with some information on how many people were eligible for tenure by department or by college at least, and how those, so you'd mentioned like, oh, there may be some difference because of the discipline or whatever. I'd love to see some follow-up on that. Just to satisfy my own curiosity, not necessarily.
Regent Gully, yes, we do that. We have that broken down definitely by
Thank you so much.
by college and by department. Yes.
Thank you.
Student Representative Aremo.
Thank you for giving me the permission, Chair, and thank you for speaking to us. My question is going to be a bit similar to Regent Gully. I'm more interested actually in seeing something like an infographics that gives us the number of those who submitted their CV at the beginning and how that number reduced down to the provost level with the percentage. Do you have something like that?
Vice Provost.
Student Representative, could you repeat the question again in terms of you want to know at what stage of the evaluation process?
Yes, at each stage of the evaluation process, it's possible that some individuals, some applicants may have been dropped out, right? So I just want to see what number actually went through and what number was actually dropped out. More like an infographics, just with
In terms of kind of where they dropped off before they even got to the tenure process?
So that would now, at the end of, at least at the final level, which is the provost level before the board action, we now have the final numbers. So I want to see how that number takes place.
Yeah, we can definitely look at it year by year, for sure, in terms of that situation, yes. We can.
For this round, I mean.
Oh, for this round in terms of each level?
Yes.
That's a very good question. We do keep that sort of confidential in terms of the individual votes by the department and then by the college and all of that. So you want to see kind of where it's the decision process is really sort of a cumulative process up to the provost level. So you could have department chairs and deans sort of differ in their yes/no votes, and then the provost comes in and makes a decision on that. So it still goes to the provost. It doesn't drop off at all. They all come all the way to the provost for the final decision.
Just to follow up.
Yeah, that was it. So that they all can say, it can all be no's, and it still comes to the provost level. So it doesn't drop off before that.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. I think I got that. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you for asking that, because I think I didn't realize it was that way. So it moves on with the yay or nay recommendation at each level. They all land at the provost desk. Is that right, provost person?
Yes, thank you, Chair Kenyanya. Members of the committee, yes, once you begin the tenure process, it's incredibly rare once you begin the I'm putting my dossier in, right? It's incredibly rare for people to stop. The candidate up to a particular point does have an opportunity to withdraw, but that's, again, extremely rare. It's much more likely that faculty who are not going to be successful in the process don't begin the process in the first place, which is why we track that cohort success rate to capture that.
Before moving to Regent Talurabi, because I think my question is kind of on topic, can you help me contextualize the numbers I'm looking at? Okay, so 69 out of 72 for regular faculty, received the promotion. For associate professors, 68 out of 74. Those are high percentages, and I don't know how to react to that because I don't know what those usually are. I mean, on one hand, it's like, as you just pointed out, people can gauge themselves pretty well, but then also the competitiveness, I'm just trying to understand how I should react to those high percentages of success.
Thank you, Chair Kenyanya, members of the committee. So indeed, for faculty who begin the tenure process, the percentage of success is quite high. It's unlikely that they're either going to drop out or not be successful. And that's in part because of all of the work we do up front in their careers to guide them on what is required for success, to give them feedback about whether they're on track, to give them early signals that perhaps they might have a challenge and they may want to, move somewhere else, find a different, option, that kind of thing. Again, we also counsel people if there's a particular area that they're struggling with, we give them support so that they can increase their activities and the quality of their activities in that area. So in my mind, if we had a large number of faculty who were entering the tenure process and who were not successful, that would be a failure on our part, because we have not either given them the appropriate signal or failed to give them the support that they needed. Again, this cohort analysis of people who begin and then don't end up with tenure at around 50%, that's kind of the benchmark that we use when we benchmark ourselves against other universities. That's kind of what we think of as the actual tenure likelihood.
So 50%, that's if we include the full denominator of also the peers who also didn't enter but are in that cohort and would have been expected to enter, we're around 50.
Exactly, 53.3 this year.
And
but
maybe
yes.
that's the number I was expecting to see.
Yeah.
So thank you for clarifying that. Regent Talurabe.
Thank you, Chair Kenyanya. And Dr. Lewis, thank you for the presentation. I had the same question, so thank you for already answering that. My other question was just, are there assessments that we've done on the process, and what, I don't know if I am just like recalling this in my head and it didn't really happen or something, but I recall some of the discussion about how it felt like the process was arduous or did not work well for everyone, and I just wonder what kinds of feedbacks we are hearing about how to improve on that tenure process. Yeah.
Chair Kenyanya, Regent Talurabe, I'll turn to Vice Provost Lewis in a moment, but I will say it is a stressful process. There is no way around that. I remember when I was going through the process the first time, it is not designed to be easy, and that's really so that we can realize the Regent's charge of being selective and only, the institution is making a promise to employ these people for life, and so we need to be really confident that they are going to continue to deliver at the highest quality. But I'll turn to Vice Provost Lewis about feedback on the process and how we collect that.
Vice Provost.
Regent Talurabe, thank you for the question. Yeah, I think when I think about the process through the entire 6 or 7 or 8 years, however long it is, every faculty member meets with the department head once a year at least, has a mentoring committee, so they are guided all the way and should be getting feedback on their progress along the way. So by the time they get to the 6th year, if there has been some issues, that should have been pointed out to them throughout and had a chance to address that. So the whole 6 years, that's part of the process. Now in the 6th year, yes, it can be a stressful process. The dossier are very large. Many external letters are from across the country and the world are put together for the dossiers, and you're going through many levels of review. The departmental review to the chair review to the college promotion and tenure. So it's a year-long process. So yes, it can be stressful, but we do really work with our department heads to make sure that there are support in place and there's transparency in the process. And so hopefully we do, make it as less stressful as possible, but there's no getting around it given the rigor.
Regent Talurabe.
Yeah, sorry. Chair Kenyanya, I had a follow-up question, Dr. Lewis. Just you mentioned that about 3% of the tenure professors leave. I'm curious if you could just share some of that reasoning, and is there any reasons for which you would think would be concerning for us, right, about those professors who go through that whole process and then they leave? Yeah.
Vice Provost.
Yeah, Regent Talurabe, that's a great question. I can't say for sure why they would leave after the process, but considering the number, 3% leave, after going through that process, they might have a competing offer somewhere. They've become after they have tenure, they've proven themselves, they become very attractive on the job market, and it's a competitive system out there now. But and so I can't say, we don't do the exit interview, so I can't say for sure why, but it is very competitive for sure.
Regent Talurabe, I'm being recruited to other board of regents here, so it's very competitive. Got a very competitive offer here at another institution.
Trained well here.
Yeah, it's doubling my pay. Last question, because I know we want to bring up some of the faculty. How do we account for and really try to mitigate bias? And this obviously, want to be centered on the scholarly work, but this is a similar conversation we have when we're talking about graduate students and their relationship with their advisors. When we talk about student evals of faculty members, we know that those aren't fair to women and faculty of color. So how are we factoring that into this process?
Chair Kenyanya, thank you for the question. I think that the great thing about this process is there's so many factors that are, it's research, teaching, and service, obviously. And then within teaching, as your example, we don't just look at teaching evaluations. There's peer review of teaching. There's review of the syllabi. It's a very extensive process. So if there is one thing that might be biased, hopefully the other things will offset that. I also think the external letter writers are a huge part of this in terms of getting an objective viewpoint on the person's performance. The external reviewer letters cannot be a former advisor. It can't be anyone that they've ever collaborated with, so they should be objective to the process. And a lot of stake is put into those to really get that objective outside. But really the holistic approach, I think, helps address that.
Thank you very much. Provost Croson will turn to recommendations if you're ready.
We'll go to the next slide, please. Chair Kenyanya, members of the committee, I now present for your approval the following recommendations: that the regular faculty candidates be approved for tenure or promotion as indicated, that the contract faculty members be approved for promotion to the rank indicated, and that the academic professional candidates listed receive continuous appointment and promotions as indicated.
Thank you, Provost Croson. Committee members, I will look for a motion to approve A, the promotion and tenure of regular faculty, B, the promotion and rank of contract faculty, and C, the continuous appointment and promotion of the academic professional candidates as presented.
Move to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you for the second. It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion passes. Congratulations to all the faculty members. And with that, we actually want to invite up a few of those faculty members to learn more about the process we just discussed. Provost Croson.
Chair Kenyanya, members of the committee, at this point, I'm delighted to welcome our panel of faculty members who were, come on up to the table, who were promoted or tenured via your previous vote, to offer a brief view into their work. We've chosen these faculty to be with us this morning because of their excellence in research, teaching, and service, and to illustrate the variety and breadth of the field-shaping scholarship at the University of Minnesota. Their complete bios are available in your docket, so I'm not going to offer lengthy introductions, but I will name them. We have Dr. Andres Gomez, College of Food, Agriculture, and Natural Resource Sciences on the Twin Cities campus. We have Dr. Lacey Loomer, the Labovitz School of Business and Economics on the Duluth campus. We have Dr. Kelsey Metzer, the Center for Learning Innovation on the Rochester campus. And we have Dr. Richard Thacker, the Carlson School of Management on the Twin Cities campus. Dr. Gomez, I understand you'll be speaking first, so I'm delighted to turn the floor to you.
Dr. Gomez.
Thank you so much, Chair Kenyanya, members of the committee. I am very happy to be here. I'm delightful to share this. A little bit nerve-wracking, never been here before. Well, my process has been more than rewarding. You know, I study microbes. That's my research focuses on studying microbes that live in people's and animals' bodies. You know, that collection of microorganisms that we call the microbiome, you know, plays a very important role in the health of animals and humans. And the interesting thing about that microbiome is that the only part of our genome that we can change. There's no way we can change our genome in any way. You know, I don't have a lot of hair. There's no way I can change that. That's in my genes. But I can change my microbiome to alter my biology in a favorable way. So in my research, I span animals and humans. And when it comes to animals, I am concerned with investigating ways we can raise animals in a healthier and more productive way without using antibiotics for growth promotion. And I guess you're familiar with the epidemics of antibiotic resistance that we have today. So I collaborate with the industry to test different ways the microbiome can be hacked at the gut level so we can make animals live more productive and cleaner lives along the production chain. And when it comes to humans, my research, you know, is very eclectic. I mean, I guess working the microbiome is both a blessing and a curse because you run the risk of spreading too thin. But when it comes to humans, I'm very interested in how our food system has changed our microbiome to the point it reflects the high burden of chronic diseases that we have today, you know, diabetes, heart disease, mental health. So I'm interested in investigating how different components of our food system have either affected the diversity of microbiome and how that has made us sicker, and how can we explore ways that microbiome can we enrich, maybe with traditional diets, to be healthier and happier, live healthier and happier lives. I guess one of the most rewarding parts of my experience has been the people, working with students. I think I'm very happy to say that every single grad student and postdoc and an undergrad student working with me has gone to live very successful lives, in different realms of science, either in grad school or in the industry. And working with the students is also a very rewarding part of my work. I came up with 2 courses on microbiomes, that I created myself. One is a grad level course, and another one is an undergrad. And it fills me with joy interacting with students, even though my teaching load is about 30%. I really enjoy that. And when it comes to service, I think what I've always had in mind is to, in a way, democratize microbiome science. I think you guys are familiar with how big the microbiome has become, is already mainstream to the point there is Netflix documentaries. So I think my purpose is to get more people to know that there's such thing called the microbiome, and that it's a very important part of how we can create our own narratives about how to maintain our own health.
Thank you, Dr. Gomez. Dr. Loomer?
Chair Kenyanya, members of the Mission Fulfillment Committee, thank you for having me here today. As you know, tenure stream faculty do work in all fields of teaching, service, and research. As a faculty member at the Duluth campus, a lot of my time is devoted to teaching students in our healthcare management program at the Labovitz School of Business and Economics. As a specialized program, I teach a breadth of classes to our students, ranging from health economics to healthcare data and analytics. We have over 500 graduates of our program that contribute to operational efficiencies, quality improvement, workforce development, and innovations in the health workforce all over the state. In my service activities, I have been fortunate enough to lead our campus efforts of joining the Age-Friendly University Global Network, working alongside our community members' efforts, including Duluth Aging Support and the Arrowhead Area Agency on Aging, who are working to make Duluth and Greater Minnesota age-friendly communities. I also served as a learning partner for the Community Aging Advocate and Bussy from Side Lake in University of Minnesota's Project REACH, Rural Experts Advancing Community Health. Today, I would like to share a few highlights from my research in the area of long-term care. In particular, my research focuses on the intersection of payment policy and how that impacts vulnerable populations across Minnesota and nationally. Minnesota's oldest residents, those aged 85 years and older, are expected to more than double in the next 35 years, from the current 120,000 to over 270,000. Although only about 3% of Minnesotans live in the 350 nursing homes across the state, we spend over $2.5 billion on these services. Early in the pandemic, I studied what types of nursing homes were more likely to have residents be infected and die of COVID-19. This research was used to inform the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention concerning what populations were most vulnerable to the disease. Additionally, I conducted research on how turnover in nursing positions was associated with lapses in infection control protocol in nursing homes. This research was used to inform guidelines for the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, which recently began publicly reporting nurse turnover rates as a quality measure for nursing homes. I've also studied Minnesota's Medicaid payment reform for nursing homes, finding it had minimal improvements despite its investment. My collaborators and I have met with Minnesota's Department of Health Services and offered suggestions for how to improve the current way we are paying and incentivizing quality improvement in nursing homes. I've also conducted research focused on long-term care in rural areas. Many payments for healthcare services are not aligned to incentivize population health, and long-term care is no different. I studied Medicare's higher payment rate for home health services provided to rural patients, finding it did improve access and quality. Unfortunately, the higher payment rate has been phased out. My work in this area was recently cited in testimony to the United States Senate Finance Subcommittee on Healthcare regarding the vital role of home health and access to care. Across these research projects, my focus is understanding how our policies and systems impact the care we provide and how we can more efficiently improve the quality of care for our most vulnerable citizens, older adults, and those living in rural areas. Thank you for your time, and go Bulldogs.
Thank you. Go Bulldogs, Dr. Loomer. Moving on to our Raptor, Dr. Metker.
Chair Kenyanye, members of the board, I am delighted to be here with you today. I'm Kelsey Metzger, a founding faculty member at the Center for Learning Innovation on the Rochester campus. Given UMR's relatively short institutional history, I am only the second faculty member from UMR to earn tenure and subsequently be promoted to full professor under UMR's unique tenure and promotion standards. At UMR, the primary area of scholarship for all tenure-line faculty is learning and higher education. As a first-generation undergraduate college student, I studied biology and was trained as a field and bench scientist with a focus on molecular and cellular biology. While pursuing my master's degree studying molecular evolution and genetics and beginning to develop my own teaching philosophy, I became dedicated to pursuing my teaching endeavors much as I pursued my scientific inquiry in biology, by asking questions, posing testable hypotheses, and using evidence of outcomes to drive decisions about curriculum design and pedagogical choices. This framework continues to guide my work as a discipline-based biology education researcher and scholar of education innovation. I consider myself fortunate that my teaching, research, and service are all tethered to a single foundational value: to use evidence to transform higher education, striving for more accessible, inclusive, and equitable learning opportunities and outcomes for all students. I also consider myself fortunate to have what I see as the best of two worlds. As a faculty member at UMR, the Education Innovation Campus of the U, I am supported to pursue audacious initiatives and encouraged to take calculated risks and challenged in my daily work to push at the bleeding edge of learning research to create and sustain significant positive change. At the same time, I belong to a well-known, long-established, and highly respected University of Minnesota system. UMR is sometimes described as the scout ship for the University of Minnesota system with respect to emerging promising practices in education, quickly and agilely exploring possible paths forward and reporting back to the lead ship on our findings. In my role as a faculty member at UMR, I work with faculty across disciplines who are committed to using evidence-based and high-impact practices and pedagogies of care to support student learning and development. Post-tenure, I have been increasingly involved in faculty development, serving as a faculty fellow with the Center for Educational Innovation, and in my current role as the inaugural director of faculty development at UMR. One of the explicit goals of this position is to forge and strengthen connections between education innovators and dedicated classroom practitioners across the U of M system, and to support the dissemination of the work being done at the Startup Innovation Campus broadly across the U and beyond. The impact of my scholarship and professional contributions not only informs the curriculum, culture, and practices at my home campus, but also impacts the broader university community and the academic fields of biology education research and higher education teaching and learning. Thank you for inviting me to be here today to celebrate this occasion.
Thank you, Dr. Metzger. The whole time you were talking, Dr. Carroll was beaming over there. So your leadership is certainly proud of you. Thank you. And last but not least, Dr. Thacker.
All right, Chair Kenyana, members of the committee, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to speak in front of you. I'm Richard Thacker. I'm part of the finance faculty at the Carlson School of Management on the Twin Cities campus. Much of what I do related to teaching, research, and service revolves around the issue of access to financing. So in other words, when individuals and businesses need to get funding, how they're able to do so and whether their ability to do so can actually affect their operations. Now, for students, this topic and finance in general, I think, can be very daunting. There's a lot of math, there's a lot of institutional details, and it's very difficult oftentimes for students to penetrate through that. So the approach that I take in my teaching is to develop a core fundamental toolkit based on basic finance principles, and really teach students that to make it more accessible to them, and through that lens, allow them to understand various developments in the world of finance. It's that approach that underlies a finance textbook I've had the privilege of writing alongside two prominent finance scholars, one of which is a Nobel laureate. One thing I highlight in my courses that I teach is that finance, I think, is very important for the students, no matter where they end up being, whether they're working within finance or at a company, a nonprofit, or a government organization, because all of them need funding in order to operate. And so this is a broad theme that I pulled through in my research, which I'd like to share a couple of examples with you. First, in some of my research, I've looked at small family farmers. And what I find is that when they receive cash windfalls, a lot of beneficial things actually happen. They're able to increase their production, their crop yields, their productivity. They're able to purchase additional land to improve the farm and expand the farm. And then they're also experiencing an increase in their farmland values. What this highlights is that the access to funding carries a lot of benefits for them and is very important for them. But also what that shows is that lack of access to farming, or to funding rather, can prevent them from doing these things otherwise. Now, another area I'd like to share with you that I'm very passionate about is the intersection between healthcare and finance, which echoes a lot of what the others have said. A part of this research agenda is looking at the development of new drugs and new therapies. So new drugs and new therapies are developed and put out to patients by pharmaceutical and biotechnology companies. And these are responsible for developing a lot of the life-saving therapies we're all reliant on as a society. But the issue is that there are certain areas such as Alzheimer's and rare diseases that we don't see enough development in, and we don't see enough therapies actually get out to patients. And my research tries to explore why this is the case and potential solutions to this. And what the research shows is that in addition to features like the competitive structure of the market and regulation, one issue is that to develop a drug, it's very expensive and very risky. So it costs hundreds of millions of dollars to even a few $1 billion to put out a single drug from success to finish, out to patients. And also the success rates are very low. In many areas, it's around 5 to 10% to successfully develop a drug. Now, what this means is that the companies need to rely on investors and financial markets to raise this funding. But a lot of times it's so risky that investors just don't have the appetite to want to provide that sort of funding. Now, this is a problem, I think, but it also offers an opportunity from a financial perspective. Because one thing finance really excels at is deploying large amounts of money and transferring risk between people that may not want to bear it and people that are willing to bear it. And these are two big impediments in this space. And so what I'm doing in my research is actively researching solutions such as the role of financial institutions and financial instruments to try and solve this sort of problem and bring in money to these areas that we need the most. On a positive note, I think these ideas have attracted a lot of interest from industry practitioners, regulators, people, medical professionals, and then people that are working in this area. And so this is something that myself and collaborators are actively engaging with. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, we are a little low on time, and this group will have a chance to talk with these faculty members after the meeting, but I do think we can squeeze in a question or two if we have them. Yes, Vice Chair Hipsch.
Thanks, Chair Kenyanya. I just want to say, wow, if you guys are an example of who we just promoted in tenure, we're going in the right direction. That's all I can say. Good job. You know, every one of you was so diverse in your talk, and I was just stimulated. I want to hear from the other, whatever everybody else doing. I can't even imagine it. But thank you for all you do. And you know, as you get tenure here, that's a start. You know, that's now your careers are just starting, right? No, just kidding. But we don't. You know, I think sometimes you get criticized for once you get tenure that you stop because you don't have that pressure anymore. But I just want to say, keep it going. You know, the Nobel Prize comment. You know that your colleague aspired to get, and maybe we can get some more of those here too. So thank you all.
Right on that.
There you go.
Yeah, Chair Kenyanya, Regent Hibbs, thank you very much. I will add that 2 of our panelists have just got tenure. 2 of our panelists have just become full.
Yeah.
So this is even the post-tenure activities. And I will say that this is one of the pivotal responsibilities and joys of my job, is to review these tenure packets to see the amazing thing that all of our faculty are doing. These folks are representative. They are excellent, but all of our candidates are excellent.
Thank you, Provost Cross and Chair Mayron.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm reflecting on having attended the Special Committee on Academic Health, and part of the presentation was the 6 different colleges, the deans from the 6 different colleges talking about the value of collaboration with each other. And they also talked about collaboration beyond those schools, but within the university itself, the entire system. And each of the examples that you all brought to us just screamed about the good work that happens when departments and individuals collaborate with each other, with individuals and departments from other areas. And it really struck me, and I just say thank you very much. I really do believe that that's the best practice in the future, is collaborating across lines. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, well, last question, student representative.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah. And on behalf of the students, I would say we're proud to have folks like you doing excellent things. So it shows that the future is bright. We're going to have students learn from you and take over from you in the future. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you very much. Student Representative Vasilopoulos, I know you didn't raise your you're a Carlson student, so I encourage you to, take a class with Professor Thacker there.
I definitely echo the sentiments of finance being a little difficult at times, so I might have to take your class.
Yeah, okay, appreciate your time. Thank you very much. And as you guys depart, I'll make the comment, Dr. Loomer, you're in your department. I know 2 of your colleagues very well, Kim Downer and Luigi. They chaperoned a study abroad trip that I was on, and we had lots of fun with met Luigi's parents and everything. Okay, with that, I will actually use my prerogative briefly to move up item 4 to item 2, the consent report. Before continuing with our agenda as planned, Provost Croson, will you please provide an overview?
Thank you, Chair Kenyanya, members of the committee. I'm pleased to provide the consent report for your consideration, which includes our usual academic program reviews. As is typical, this report includes new academic programs that have requested changes, and plans that are to be discontinued. I would especially like to draw your attention to the proposed PhD in American Indian and Indigenous Studies. Our Department of American Indian Studies, founded in 1969, was the first fully established department in the field. The University of Minnesota has produced more PhDs working in this area than any other institution in the world. Many via the existing PhD programs in American Studies, in history, in anthropology, and in many other fields. This PhD program builds on that intellectual foundation. It also meets one of the recommendations from the Truth Report, and we're delighted that the department has so successfully navigated the curricular approvals and process for this program to appear on your docket today. This consent report is presented with my and the interim president's recommendation for approval, and I'm pleased to take any questions.
All right, questions. We will start with Regent Tad Johnson.
I don't have a question so much as a comment. I just want to thank the provost and the department, and especially Professor Jeannie O'Brien, who in 2023 became a Regents professor and is one of our outstanding faculty. And we have one of the great American Indian Studies programs in the country. And as the last 2 days this week, I was at a tribal meeting in Upper Sioux, and people keep coming up to me and asking, what have you done on the Truth Report? So I said, we're working on a couple of things, including a PhD in American Indian Studies. So I'm very happy to be able to report back to folks that we're working on this, and it's moving ahead. And I'm happy that it's on the consent agenda today. But this will be the only program of its kind in the Big Ten. Most of these programs are in the Southwest. And this is a field that, as the provost was saying, we have placed a lot of people and we've graduated a lot of folks from our American Studies program. and a lot of them are Native Americans working throughout the United States and Canada. So I think this is one of the things we do extraordinarily well, and I thank Professor O'Brien for her diligent effort in getting this through. So thank you.
Yes, Interim President.
If I could just add for information for the Regents and others in the room that Special Advisor Karen Diver will be at the June board meeting, and we will together be making the recommendations related to a response to the truth report.
Great. Thank you, President Enger. That's very helpful. And Regent Johnson, also want to recognize you for the efforts and your contributions to our university's strength in this area. This past weekend, I got to participate in UMD commencement, and the interim chancellor will tell you, I turned over to him and I said, "There's so many graduates in MTAG." It was so long line, so that really validates what the provost was saying, that we're definitely leaders in this area and have to continue to be, because those there's not a lot of those programs across the country.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you for your efforts. Any other questions on the consent agenda or any requests to separate out an item? Seeing none, I will invite a motion for approval of the consent report.
I'll move.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Looking for discussion, and I am seeing none. All those in favor of approving the consent report, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The motion is approved. You still want to take? Let's keep going. Okay, we'll continue on with our agenda. Moving on to item 3, Board of Regents policy, tuition and fees. This is before the board for review. It was previously before the board for discussion and will come back for action. I am inviting Vice President Phillips and Vice President Tomlinson to the presenters table. Provost Croson, would you like to introduce this agenda item?
Thank you, Chair Kenyanya and members of the committee. For our next agenda item, we ask for your review of proposed amendments to Board of Regents policy, tuition and fees as part of its comprehensive review process. As you may recall, this group came before the committee in our October meeting, where they indicated that not only was the tuition and fees policy up for review, but so was the Board of Regents policy, student services fee, and that it was our intent to combine these two policies so that the board might engage in the topic of student finances in a more holistic way. One of the goals of our Impact 2025 system-wide strategic plan is to develop a leading-edge tuition and pricing model. We believe that the proposed amendments and restructuring of these two policies that will be presented today is a step toward that goal. Joining us at the table for this presentation and discussion, I'm pleased to welcome back to the committee Dr. Calvin Phillips, Vice President for Student Affairs, and Julie Tomlinson, Interim Senior Vice President for Finance and Operations and Budget Director. With that, Mr. Chair, I'd like to turn it over to VPs Phillips and Tomlinson.
Please proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. As we mentioned when we discussed the policies in the fall, having two policies in this area, a policy on tuition and fees and a separate policy on student services fees, has been a source of confusion for many. There are some important procedural differences for how the student services fee is developed and how the funds are managed, but for students, parents, and others, that fee is just one of many that may be charged each term, along with tuition. In addition, neither of these policies has been updated in over 10 years, a period of time in which the delivery of instruction and student services has changed considerably. As we proceeded with the review and revision of these policies after consulting with you last October, we continued to focus on looking for ways to simplify and clarify the policies. We also focused on updating them to reflect current practices with an eye to the future. Our many conversations and consultations have verified our initial recommendation to combine the two policies into one and to shift some of the detailed procedural guidance into an administrative policy. Additionally, the recommended changes recognize the continuing shifts in instructional modalities that made some of our previous policy language outdated. The existing policy on tuition and fees was most recently updated in 2013. In general, it provides guidance on the setting of tuition rates and allowable fees, laying out the guiding principles and influencing factors. The current process is for the president to include specific recommended tuition rates and fees grounded in the principles and guidelines included in the policy as part of each annual operating budget for Board of Regents approval. Each year, the administration includes a detailed tuition rate table and pages of recommended fees as attachments to the annual budget, as you no doubt noted in the materials for the budget presentation we'll talk about this afternoon. Those attachments are actually named in the resolution that is ultimately approved by the board for the budget. The tuition and fees policy currently incorporates most of the fees, just not the student services fee. The policy outlines parameters for allowed fees in 4 general overarching categories: course fees, academic fees, which includes the campus and collegiate fees, miscellaneous term fees, and distance delivery fees. This last named category of distance delivery fees was made obsolete beginning in FY22 with the elimination of all fees in the category by rolling them into tuition. The last update of the policy in 2013 was the result of an extensive internal process to simplify and clarify the other fee categories. Grounded in that work, our recommendations for the existing elements of this policy include no substantive changes, only updates to terminology, consolidation of bullet points to remove redundant language, and elimination of outdated elements such as that reference to the distance delivery fees. The process for developing tuition and fee rates is aligned with the guidelines outlined in the policy. All tuition rates and fees are part of the robust budget development process. Specifically, the undergraduate tuition rates are set and charged based on the parameters in the policy, and the specific rates proposed in the budget are developed taking into consideration the named factors, including the availability of state funding, the availability of need-based financial aid, the costs faced by the institution, incentives for students related to access, retention, and timely progress toward degree, and market comparisons. Proposed graduate rates and associated waivers and tuition remission practices take into consideration the need to recruit the best students in a very competitive environment. And for all professional programs, the school's proposed rates based largely on market comparisons, costs, and availability of the state appropriation. Those rate proposals and the accompanying tuition revenue changes are discussed as part of the budget compact meetings with each unit and built into the budget balancing plans at that level, which are in turn built into the summed up budget brought forward by the president for review and action by the board. Similarly, the course, academic, and miscellaneous term fees are proposed by the units annually as part of the budget process. The units enter information into our tuition and fees management system. They enter any proposed changes up or down. They do increase and decrease, with supporting information explaining projected revenues, the cost to be covered by the fee, the rationale, the projected numbers of students impacted, and so on. All fees are reviewed to ensure they are allowable and meet the criteria outlined in the policy, and then our internal budget committee, which we call the Budget 6, includes them in our recommendations to the president. Ultimately, the fees that make it through this process are then included as an attachment to the president's recommended annual operating budget. No significant changes are being proposed to the current elements of the tuition and fees policy. The essence of the policy is still good. The definitions and guidelines remain valid and relevant, and the process is still good. The Board of Regents will retain its role in reviewing and approving all final tuition rates and fee levels with each annual operating budget. The changes that are recommended focus on updates to simplify and to clarify, to reflect the way we deliver instruction now, and to remove outdated policy elements. For instance, the reorganization of the graduate school shifted the way we talk about professional programs, so we are recommending an update to the language to recognize that these are no longer defined by specific colleges, but by the educational content and the target audience. And as another example, many colleges have developed mid-career professional programs and certificates as we strive to meet the needs of the market, so the recommended policy language reflects the expanded variety of postgraduate programs. Other updates include providing clarity on the role of the president and the board with regard to defining state residency for tuition purposes, recognizing that the definition of residency is largely determined by state and federal laws and regulations. And elimination of outdated references to distance delivery fees. These were eliminated, as I mentioned, for the 21-22 academic year in recognition of changes to course modality. The most significant change to the tuition and fees policy is the incorporation of the governance elements of the Regents policy on student services fees. This shift brings Regents policies related to the charging of all tuition and all fees into a single policy for simplicity and for clarity. And for more on that, I will now turn the presentation over to my colleague, Vice President Phillips.
The university assesses a fee for student services on each campus. Assessment of this type of fee is consistent with the funding practice at many colleges and universities. The fees support essential elements of our students' university experience that have become an expectation of students and families. Student service fees support student centers, recreational centers, health and wellness services, including mental health, student activities, and organization, to name a few. These programs and services foster a sense of community among students, supports their health and well-being, and provide assistance when they face challenges. Students are charged a fee each semester and receive access to all programs and services on each campus. Students cannot choose to pay one or two services based on their interest, usage, or personal viewpoint. Currently, any student registered for 6 or more in-person credits in a semester or 3 or more in-person credits in the summer is assessed the student service fee. Students who are in non-degree seeking program, high school students enrolled in the post-secondary enrollment option, also known as PSEO, Regents scholarship recipients, or students in approved fully on or mid-level career programs are exempt from and are not assessed the fee. Each campus follows an annual process to set the amount of the student service fee. The process involves a committee made up of a majority of students who hear requests from student affairs departments and student groups, deliberates, and put forth recommendations to the chancellors on the greater Minnesota campus and myself. I review all recommendations and submit proposed fees amounts to the president for inclusion in the annual operating budget. Today, we recommend revising the criteria for the assessment of the student service fee. Currently, off-campus distance classes are excluded from the credit count for determining who is charged a fee and eligible for services. That interpretation of distance learning no longer reflects the current practice where students may take classes online from a residence hall or local housing, or may access the fee service remotely from further away. With more classes offered online at all of our campuses, the distinction of off-campus distance classes in place its previous decade is no longer a valid reflection of the student's relationship with campus life. To better reflect the changing nature of the course delivery and remote delivery of programs and services that have historically been campus-based, we recommend no longer excluding credit for off-campus distance classes from the credit count used to determine the application of the fee. We would like to retain the current practice for campuses and colleges to request exemptions from paying the fee for annual approved fully online or mid-career professionals credit earning programs. This exemption recognizes the different relationship that a student in one of these programs has with campus life. In general, students in these programs are working professionals who have no need for community and wellness support offered by programs funded through the student service fee. We would like to also retain fee exemption for non-degree seeking PSEOs and Regents scholarship students. We would like to add an exemption for students studying abroad for a full semester as acknowledgement of their changed relation with campus life for that time period. We recommend moving the technical non-governance level elements of the current student service fee policy to a new administrative policy. The proposed new student service fee administrative policy outlines how the fee supports the university mission. The policy also addresses the common good of nature of fee assessment. As previously mentioned, students are assessed the fee in its entirety and cannot choose to pay for only those services that have a personal interest to them. And additionally, although it has been the current practice, the policy explicitly states that student service fee cannot be used for partisan political purposes and defines such activities. The policy goes on to identify the university practices each campus is utilized to administer the fee. While campus-specific procedures will vary and are individually linked to the policy established at a minimum. All campuses will have a committee made up of student majority, establish and publish an allocation process and criteria for decision-making that are applied in a viewpoint-neutral manner, and have a process for appeal. I'm going to turn it back over to Julie.
The review of these policies began over 18 months ago as part of the routine policy review cycle. Through engagement with those involved in the review process for tuition and fees, we very quickly realized that the concurrent review of the policy on tuition and fees and student services fees offered the opportunity to streamline them into one, eliminating the confusion of having two policies that address the fees. The review was led by the Office of the Provost, the Office of the Vice President for Student Affairs, and the Budget Office. The policy review began with engaging large and small groups across all campuses. After this broad consultation and development of initial recommendations, including the development of the administrative policy that Vice President Phillips just mentioned, we consulted the Mission Fulfillment Committee last October to ensure that our final recommendations would reflect the priorities of the Board of Regents. Since that time, we have consulted broadly with many groups across the university, including the groups that you see listed here. The consultation included both changes to the tuition and fees policy and the development of the administrative policy on student services fees. Overall reaction to the recommended changes to both policies was positive. We made some changes to the policy language in response to questions raised during the policy review, but again, no additional substantive changes are recommended. Most questions related to procedural elements of the administrative policy on student services fees or campus-level administrative procedures. We recommend for your consideration the proposed changes to the Regents policy on tuition and fees and the elimination of the current Regents policy on student services fees. Plural. I will now turn the presentation back to Provost Croson.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice President Thomason and Phillips. Chair Kenyanya, members of the committee will be happy to answer any questions about the proposed policy changes. As a reminder, this topic is for discussion today, review today, and vote in June.
Thank you, Provost Croson. And I will turn to committee members for further discussion on the topic. Any questions? Yes, Regent Davenport.
Chair Kenyanya, thank you for the presentation.
Regent Davenport, can you turn your microphone?
Yes, thank you. I want to thank you for that table. Just a comment, that was really helpful because these policies get big. So, and this is a big policy combining these two. So that's a nice model. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Davenport. Student Representative Vasilopoulos.
Yes, thank you, Chair Kenyanya, VP Phillips, Interim SVP Thomason. I had two quick notes. The first one, being a Carlson student, as was mentioned earlier, who's required to study abroad, I really want to appreciate adding the exemption for students who are studying abroad for a semester. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I know a lot of students are really going to be happy with that decision. I also had a question not directly related to one of these recommended changes, but about the SSF fee in general. As you mentioned, the SSF fee is assessed to students regardless of interest or usage in different kind of programs on campus. Aside from, I'm sure, the complexity of the logistics that would be in having students kind of choose what to opt in to pay for, I'm wondering if there has been any conversation around allowing students to be able to sort of opt in for saying, hey, I have interest or I will be using this service, and so I'm happy to kind of pay for it, or students saying, hey, I'm never using the rec, why am I paying money for it? And so just curious on how those discussions have gone.
Have you heard of taxes, Student Representative? Provost Croson, do you want to start?
Thank you, Chair Kenyanya. I'll go first, and then I'll turn it over to Vice President Phillips if I miss anything. So, the principle of assessing the student services fee for all services allows them to be available as public goods for our students to utilize. Often we have services like the Aurora Center or student legal services that are needed by students during times that they didn't expect to need them. Since the pandemic, many of the programs and services funded by the student services fee have also been offered remotely, including mental health counseling, legal services, fitness classes, and others. So at the program level, students can be exempted from paying the fee if the nature of their relationship with campus, like being on study abroad, is different. But we don't believe that having a menu from which students can choose would be in the best interests of the university or of the students.
Any further comments? Vice President Phillips?
I think the provost did a great job explaining it. The reality is, Chair Kanyaya and the Board of Regents, is that we always know that, not on a moment that students may not realize what services they may need. And we want to make sure that that's available when they need it. And sometimes when you do a system where you pick and choose, it can work against that student being able to access those things when they most need it, because, sometimes we don't think we need it today, and then tomorrow it shows that we do. So that's kind of the mindset that we kind of look at as we look at these opportunities that we have available to our students, that they're there, they're available. We know that some students use them more than others, but the reality is it's to support the good of everybody that are students here at the university.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And on a more serious note, this did come up. I remember, when I was in student government, there was some legislative questions around this area. I think a bill was even introduced, and we definitely discussed that. And I think what kind of gave us comfort, and they referenced it, is the campus level processes are student led. By I think board policy, SSF committees have to be a majority, of student membership, right? So because that process is very much student influenced, then the students, get to decide what is appropriate for everyone. But no, good question. I was just joking. Regent Gully.
I had two questions, and thank you, Chair. And you may have answered this question. I know there's some reasons for this, but I'm wondering, why don't we just incorporate this into a larger, why don't we just consider it part of tuition and just have one? I'm a big fan of just having the sticker price be the sticker price. And I realize that is tricky with financial aid and the way that things are divided. But I'm wondering, we know what these fees are. Is there a reason that we don't just make it effectively for the students, that we don't just say, hey, yeah, of course, on the back end, we're going to have different ways of looking at this, but this is just the tuition. My second question is, how does this interact with financial aid programs and programs like the North Star Promise? How does that show up for those students?
Good questions. SVP Thompson.
Chair Kenyanya, Regent Gully, I'll take the second one first. It is included, it's a mandatory fee, so it is included in the calculations for that. It's also included for both, for financial aid and for the North Star Promise program. I'll speak to the first one, and others can chime in. But we've had this question various times over the years in terms of, why do we have fees at all, any kind? Why don't we just put it into tuition? And there are two models you could make in that regard. We could make that change. We have chosen not to over time because surprisingly, those students that are paying the fees, the message we've heard, they appreciate the input they have and the understanding of what those fees are paying for, versus having it as all wrapped up in tuition, which is more about the cost. So it is a choice that we make, but one that we believe best represents the way the students want to interact with those services and understand what they're paying for.
Okay.
Regent Gully, any follow-up?
No, thank you so much, Chair, and thank you.
Thank you. Yes, student representative.
Thank you, Chair Kenyanya. Thank you for presenting to us. It's not a question. Okay, I have a question, but I have a comment. Yes.
You lied.
So, the student service fee. Interestingly, I've been part of the student service fee committee for more than a year now, maybe 2 years. So I kind of understand. I've seen how the process has evolved over time. And interestingly, because I served as vice chair of the Student Senate, you have also presented these to us in the Student Senate Consultative Committee, and we've exhausted all our concerns. You answered them very well. Now, in the Student Services Fee Committee, I had the opportunity of interacting with the students, legal services, and we had testimonies how the student service fee, paying the student service fee, students were able to access those services when they never expected. For example, we had folks who had issues with their housing off campus, and we had good success because they were represented by our lawyers here. And I mean, there's so many of them. And sincerely, I kind of like what you guys have done. I support what this proposal, really nice. But one question is this. Okay, I know you consulted a wide variety of folks. Is it a question or a recommendation? It's a recommendation. And I know that when you come into the Student Senate Consultative Committee, we have representatives from system campuses. But I did not see that you visited some of those student government organizations on those system campuses. So in the future, if you have to do something like this or similar, I think you should try and talk to those folks too. They matter as stakeholders in this stuff. Thank you.
Any comment?
Excellent recommendation.
Okay, all right. I think I had a question. You distracted me, student. So I have a question and comment. A lot of this makes a lot of sense, and we've already had discussion on this previously. And I mean, I think that the students' relationships to campus, specifically as it relates to online education, certainly has changed. And it certainly is fair to say, with current policy, there's students using the services that aren't being assessed the fee. And I'm kind of wrestling with this flip now, because I think we're going to have some of the opposite problem where you're going to have some that maybe shouldn't be assessed the fee. And I'm looking at the services, and I know some of these, we do have online modalities, not for all of them. And even for some of them, I mean, reasonable minds can disagree on in terms of if it's the same service. For some of them, certainly. But with that being said, I'm curious if there's, so we have listed exemptions in terms of groups. Is there an exemption process for requesting one in current policy and in future policy? I see you nodding, Senior Vice President.
Yes, Mr. Chair, there is, as part of the budget process as well. The units, when they submit all of their fee information, they can submit requests for exemption beyond those that are specifically identified in the policy. At a program level, for example, a new totally online program, they will submit an exemption request through the budget process. And we review that in alignment with the policy and in past precedent and so on. And we do approve exemptions on a regular basis.
Is there an individual level exemption process?
I'm sorry, did you mean, Mr. Chair, for an individual person?
Yeah, that's what I was referring to.
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah.
No, it's submitted by the school related to a program or sub-program or some group.
And that makes total sense. I would offer it for consideration, not so much to be selective about what you want to pay into, but if someone wanted to maybe petition their modality and say, no, I really do live in, other state or whatever, but I'm in the online category, I would offer it for consideration. And then I guess my other question is the exempt categories that were listed, PSEO, non-degree, mid-career, do they have access to the service? Obviously, some services, you can't make that distinction, but if we're talking rec center, legal services, they don't have that. Okay, all right. Answers
No, Mr. Chair, they would not.
Okay, all right. Any further questions from the committee? Okay, as a reminder, this will come back before the board for action at our next committee meeting. Thank you very much for the presentation and for discussion. Committee members, I'm personally inclined to keep going, but I am responsive to my committee members. So is there a desire for a break?
Short break.
The real chair has spoken. We will reconvene please. At 11.
Pretty please.
All right, committee members, we'll turn back to our agenda. Last but certainly not least, system-wide student affairs overview discussion. And for that, we still have our Vice President for Student Affairs, Calvin Phillips, and he is joined by Lisa Irwin, Vice Chancellor for Student Life and Dean of Students at the University of Minnesota, Duluth. And this discussion will be about how the student affairs function is structured throughout the system. Vice President, oh, okay, yeah, Provost Croson, please.
Thank you, Chair Kenyanya and members of the committee. Our next presentation to the committee will be an overview of student affairs at a system-wide level. As you're aware, the Impact 2025 System-Wide Strategic Plan has 5 overall commitments, and commitment 1 is student success. Student success can take various forms, but our overall mission is to meet all students where they are, to maximize their skills, potential, and well-being in a rapidly changing world. A major goal for student success is to enhance the student experience and their wellness and success. Joining us for this presentation is once again Vice President for Student Affairs, Calvin Phillips, along with Dr. Lisa Irwin, Vice Chancellor for Student Life and Dean of Students at the Duluth campus. Dr. Irwin has been in her Vice Chancellor role since 2011 and has recently announced that she will be retiring this summer. Vice Chancellor Irwin has been a fierce ambassador for the Duluth campus and truly a student success advocate for our entire system. I want to personally thank her for her years of dedicated service, as well as joining us today.
Thank you.
So with that, Mr. Chair, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Vice President Phillips and Vice Chancellor Irwin.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Provost Croson, Chair Kenyanya, and members of the board. Vice Chancellor Irwin and I are excited to share with you information about the mission and the purpose of our respected student affairs units across the system, and to highlight some of the many collaborations we have accomplished, particularly relates to the goals set forth in the Impact 2025 Strategic Plan. As Vice President of Student Affairs in the Twin Cities, I play a role in leading, coordinating, collaborating with my system peers to support student success on our respective campuses. Collectively, we meet monthly, engage in discussions about trends and issues we are facing. Every summer, we meet in person for a day-long retreat where we dive into agreed-upon topics in more details and engage in professional learning beyond current events in higher education. On this slide, we created a word cloud based on the mission statements of the various divisions. You can see some of the key themes of our collective mission statements. We primarily focus on students, supporting their student development, sense of belonging, and engagement. Secondary words include how we serve them by supporting, developing, empowering, and enhancing their success. You will see that our portfolios are similar but different across the system. For example, at Crookston, Student Affairs has dining, the Disability Resource Center, Public Safety, and Residential Life in their portfolio. On the Duluth campus, you will find diversity, inclusion, and student affairs, as well as other auxiliary units, such as the bookstore, transportation, and parking. On the Morris campus has similar units, but also include athletics, which is unique to their campus. They have a very strong Native American Student Success Center that is a part of student affairs. The Rochester campus has many of the same units in their portfolio as the other campuses, including residence life and newly added dining. On the Twin Cities campus, we have a broad portfolio of units, including several services such as Leadership Minor, Off-Campus Living, Radio K, and Student Parent Resources. As with our other campuses, we offer many opportunities for student involvement and engagement with student groups, multicultural student engagement, and fraternity and sorority life. Student Affairs on the Twin City campus does not have the responsibility for dining or residential life, transportation, and parking, or the Disability Resource Center, which are located elsewhere at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. I would now like to turn it over to Vice Chancellor Irwin, where she will cover our various collaboration across our 5 campuses in the areas of mental health and well-being.
Dr. Irwin.
Chair Kenyanya,
Vice President Phillips, members of the board. One of the initiatives related to MPACT 2025 and student success was to establish a system-wide mental health initiative. You know it as the President's Initiative on Student Mental Health. We call it PRISM. It's currently wrapping up year 3. From the start, PRISM structure was designed to be inclusive of students, staff, and faculty on all of our campuses in support of student mental health. This has truly been an outstanding model of how system collaborations can and should work. A comprehensive presentation regarding the status of PRISM will be on your June docket. Another excellent example of system collaboration is the Mental Health Learning and Collaboration Network. This network was created in 2017 by Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs Sandy Olson-Loy and Jean Williamson, Associate Director of Student Counseling, Health, and Wellness, and both are from the Morris campus. This group meets regularly to share best practices and resources for supporting student mental health and has been an integral voice within PRISM, especially related to services and treatment. An unfortunate reality faced by students struggling with mental health issues is harm to themselves or others. Each of our campuses has a team that focuses on support for students experiencing mental health concerns or crises. These cross-disciplinary teams are critical to supportive and effective response to student mental health concerns. In addition, each campus employs case managers who assess, support, and refer students during times of crisis. In January, representatives from each campus care team engaged in a 3-day in-person training focused on best practices for student mental health interventions, and that training included assessment for individual cases and violence risk assessment techniques. As part of the Mental Health Learning and Collaboration Network and the PRISM Services and Treatment Work Group, the Mental Health Advocates Program provides training for faculty and staff on how to support student mental health, and the program has been expanded to all campuses. This training offers 8 modules that contain information that's specific and relevant to each individual campus. And as you've previously heard, the Higher Learning Commission, or HLC, is the body that provides institutional accreditation for all 5 campuses. As part of a 10-year review cycle, each campus develops a quality initiative, and the quality initiative for the current cycle for the Twin Cities and Rochester campuses is focused on the connection between the learning environment and student mental health. To this end, an all faculty and instructor required baseline online training module was developed and then implemented across the system. I'll now move from mental health to well-being and wellness. In their first year, students on each campus are required to complete educational modules that focus on topics that promote personal wellness and a sense of belonging. Specific topics include alcohol and other drug use, sexual misconduct prevention, and inclusion and belonging. This education is centered in larger campus and community-based discussions that dive more deeply into the topics covered in the courses. In other words, the modules are a beginning. In March, you received a video update from our students who emphasized that continued support for basic needs is essential to their success. With data from the College Student Health Survey, each of our campuses have supports, programs, and services in place to address food insecurity. We realize that there is still more we can do and are actively engaging with the Minnesota Office of Higher Education Basic Needs Work Group around topics of food, housing, childcare, transportation, healthcare, mental health, and finances. Now I turn the presentation back over to Vice President Phillips, who will share with you information about our collaborations around career readiness and placement.
Employers are eager to connect with our students. Over the years, we have put into place several tools that allow for coordinated engagement across a decentralized career service model. Most recently, we have launched a constituent relationship management system through Salesforce. This software allows us to track the interests in multiple points of engagement with our employer and partners. We continue to employ several thousand students in on-campus jobs across the system. Researchers show that on-campus employment leads to greater persistence and a sense of belonging of students. Impact 2025, one of their goals was to increase on-campus employment opportunities for all students each year. We have successfully moved from 13,300 students employees to 15,300 student employees across our system. Student Affairs divisions offer many of these on-campus employment opportunities. Currently, plans are being developed to enhance the career development of our student employees with student affairs, with more intentionally supervisor interactions, interview training, and goal setting. Future plans are underway to roll out programs more broadly beyond student affairs. The Impact 2025 strategic plan, we set the goal of exceeding national career outcomes reported by the National Association of Colleges and Employers, otherwise known as NACE, by between 6 to 10%. I'm happy to report that 91.8% of our graduates were either in full-time or part-time jobs, internships, continuing their education, or serving in the military in their first year post-graduation. This meets our goal of exceeding the NACE benchmark by 6%. Recent efforts to streamline data collection across all colleges and system campuses, utilizing one core survey instrument, has created a sustainable model for tracking student career outcomes for the future. This summer, the Vice Chancellor and I are gathered for an annual retreat as we prepare for the upcoming year. We will be discussing plans to encourage student engagement in the upcoming presidential election, learning about the latest development in artificial intelligence, planning for the future of PRISM efforts, and implementing new policies that have been updated this past year. Chair Kenyanya, and this concludes our presentation. We're happy to take questions on any topic, but especially value the board's input on other strategies that we could consider in supporting mental health, well-being, including basic needs, and career readiness and outcomes.
Thank you. Committee members will turn to discussion. Looking for questions from the committee members. Well, and I guess I'll start while those percolate. I don't have the slide in front of me, but there was that slide where we were talking about some of those first year programs. There's the alcohol education. I think is there a mental health course? Maybe, okay. But anyway, that slide in those programs, could you talk a bit more about those? Because I think, when we talk about mental health and these other student initiatives, there's the support side that the university has to be responsive to, and I think we've increased resources and continue to. And then there's how can we equip students to deal with these issues better and maybe prevent some of the things that are happening in the first place. And I think that first year intervention, first semester is really key in a student's life. Can you talk about those, and then also maybe what we've seen from them?
Chair Kenyanya, the modules are offered right before students come to campus, and they represent the first step in what is a continuum of support for students in their education throughout the year. So at our campus, it's called Bulldog Welcome Week. I'm certain every of the 4 campuses have some kind of a new student orientation, and those will pick up elements from those courses to begin some more education for students and some dialogue and discussion. And that leads into the first year experience course, where we have developed standalone modules that accompany those topics so that our first year experience instructors are really equipped with a great set of ways to educate students further. So the entire first year is really focused on education, beginning with the modules and then increasing throughout the year.
Thank you, Dr. Irwin. Regent Tad Johnson.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to commend Dr. Lisa Irwin on 13 years of exemplary service at the University of Minnesota Duluth. She was always and always has been eminently accessible and upbeat and positive on a lot of things. So I know you're going to be missed at UMD. So, but I was just wondering, and I guess I'll direct this question to you. We had a generation of a group of students that went through COVID. And then when I'm reading more and more with regard to the upcoming election, is there's kind of the genuine lack of hope among young people. And I was just wondering, first of all, how COVID impacted folks, and second, why there's sort of this malaise going on among, our young people in their early 20s.
Dr. Irwin.
Chair Kenyanya, Regent Johnson, thank you for those kind words. Appreciate it. This year, I just finished our Student Life Annual Report, and this year really marks the first year we're seeing a return to more typical levels of engagement. Those years after COVID really were a struggle as our students hadn't experienced in high school some of those things that really prepare them for engagement in college. So I'm glad to say that we're seeing increasing amounts of engagement. We found straight out after COVID students over-engaged or under-engaged. There didn't seem to be that path of sort of a successful way of connecting with your campus. And it's great to see that return. I don't know how to explain that malaise that you described, but I do know that we're very aware of it. And as we move into into the fall, one of the topics we're going to discuss as a group under Calvin's leadership, Vice President Phillips' leadership, is this idea of what does civic engagement look like in this day, in this age. And there are some really interesting system efforts being developed by faculty here on the Twin Cities campus alongside Braver Angels to think about a civic engagement model that will not only engage our students in the ways we hope that is beneficial in their education, but also lift the hope and create some energy toward voting. We want to encourage our students to vote, but also into civic dialogue.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Student Representative Vasilopoulos.
Yes, thank you, Chair Kenyanya. VP Phillips, Vice Chancellor Irwin, thank you so much for your presentation today. As the board and you all know, the student representatives put together a video documentary this year instead of a traditional written report, highlighting a lot of the initiatives that you mentioned today, as well as some areas for growth. And so it was really nice to hear even more information on that. I want to touch a little bit on the question that you've posed at the end here. One area that I'd like to add to the list that we mentioned in our documentary is areas for community building and belonging, specifically initiatives and programs that help students find their space on their respective campuses, and that looks different for every single student. And so we, as student reps, love to add this to the list of strategies that we should pursue. And I know President-designate Dr. Cunningham is in the room today, so just sharing a student hope that the new administration continues to prioritize these areas for students.
Thank you very much. Regent Gully.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you, presenters, and thank you, Dr. Irvin, for your service. I was wondering, I know when I was an adjunct faculty member for a long time, I had the very unfortunate experience of having a student commit suicide while after my class, but after they had kind of dropped out of my class, and then took it upon myself to find out what resources, to seek out resources on campus to try to help my students in a more proactive way. But certainly, I have had the experience of being in class with and in community with people who are having really serious issues. I'm wondering, what are you doing to make sure that contract faculty in particular who aren't maybe well connected to some of these resources are really aware of the opportunities when students are struggling? And also, I just want to sort of flag that this gets back to a conversation I think we were having earlier in audit and compliance, that one of the things that I think would be really helpful to make sure is on this list is de-siloing faculty and staff so that we can connect people with each other to help them have ways to access resources and ask questions of other people who might have similar experiences. So
maybe
Provost Croson, if you want to start.
Thank you. Chair Kenyanya, Regent Gully, it's a great question. I should be clear that the training that our vice presidents, vice chancellors have been talking about, and the one that's included in our HLC reaccreditation packet is not only for tenure system faculty, it's for all instructors.
Right.
So that includes contract faculty, it also includes PhD student instructors, because we find that they often struggle the most in many ways because they are so generationally close to the students that the challenges the students are facing can impact them significantly and lead to challenges for them too. So it is not limited to tenure system faculty, these resources.
Can I just offer a comment to that? I also think, as someone who is a pretty young adjunct faculty member, that students often go to the younger faculty as well because of that generational closeness. So I appreciate hearing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Gully. We have Regent Davenport, followed by Chair Mayron.
Thank you. My question's been answered pretty much, but I want to ask it again just to emphasize the importance of it and following Regent Gully and other comments. So thinking about career readiness and the mental health, well-being, and the addition of community building and belonging, I think is important. My question was, what is the interaction and collaboration with faculty on delivery? And so I don't need more unless there's more you'd like to offer. Because I think you've gotten to it.
All right, we'll take that as a comment then, Regent Davenport. Just making sure. Chair Mayron.
Well, my question is actually a follow-on to what Regent Gully was saying and also Regent Davenport. You know, I look at the faculty, regardless of their title, as kind of our first-line responders, who are the ones who are closest to seeing and interacting with the students and perhaps perceiving that there are challenges that they are experiencing, whether they be mental health or otherwise. And I understand we've got this mental health training going on for faculty. I'm wondering if you can give us an idea of substantively what information and resources are we providing to faculty, so to give us a sense of how this will actually work in the classroom or when they're working with students. I mean, you know, I haven't seen the modules because I haven't seen the modules, but to give us a sense of what we're arming our faculty with so that they can help our students.
Vice Chancellor Irwin.
Chair Kenyanya, Chair Mayron, each campus has something called the Red Folder, available at faculty and staff fingertips at a moment's notice, which has all of the resources, but also coaching, if then, and then also offers the 4 R's of response. So there are tools at the ready no matter what time of day or night. In addition, this mental health advocates program that I described really fans out support across the institutions. So that, I think in the end, each department, each college will have a number of people, faculty and staff, who are really equipped with 8 sessions of training on good response and will be available to one another as colleagues. I would also offer to you, just as a comment, that while faculty are often first responders, so are residence hall staff, student activities staff. So the collaboration aspect here is absolutely critical in creating a net of support. And so I love the idea that you're bringing up greater collaboration between faculty and staff. It's absolutely necessary for us to achieve our goals.
Chair Kenyon,
Vice President
Kilton. Just to add to that is that last year we had some dialogue between my staff along with the provost staff over that very topic about things that we need, which led to these modules, but also these videos that we're talking about. But it also led to us start thinking about what are the things that we need to do to support our faculty in the classroom to be successful. And those dialogues will continue to happen because the care teams that we mentioned in the presentation, a lot of that's showing up there. And we take it really seriously to figure out what are some of the paths that we needed to equip each one of the faculty to be successful. So it's a dialogue that will continue to happen with the provost leadership as well as my leadership to make sure that we put them in the best position to be successful.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice President Phillips. Student Representative Aremu.
Thank you, Chair Kenyanya. Thank you for the presentation. One question first before I move forward. The mental health module, is it a required course for every new student to the university? So if you have new students coming into the university, are they required to go through that a mental health training, whatever, a module for them to come in?
Vice Chancellor.
Chair Kenyanya, student representative. The modules are around alcohol and drug use, sexual assault prevention, and inclusion and belonging. We're really interested in exploring a mental health module to add to the 3 we've already had, but we haven't done that quite yet. We're certainly in discussions about that.
Right. Thank you very much. So I have a couple of ideas since the question is what are those ways you can take it. One, I think we can create a module that is required. Students have a way of just, skipping and skipping and skipping, and that's it, because they don't have the time and just get to the end of it. But I think instead of of course, students will do that no matter what you do, but can we make it such that you incentivize students to participate in that module, if it's mental health or whatever? What do I mean by incentivizing them? Can we incorporate 1 credit? I know I've thought about it and see how it's going to work out. They're not going to pay for it. We're giving back. We're looking for an healthy society, community. And so we're actually paying for that 1 credit. Before they even start classes at all, they have to take that course. I mean, it's a short course, and then they have to answer the whatever quizzes or what have you. But it doesn't end there. Stress builds up over time. And so it has to be something like a continuing education type of thing. For example, when you do the EPA training, you have to update that maybe every year. So can they do that every year, even as students till they graduate? It's a required course. It's free of charge for you, but you have to do it. You have to pass this to continue. If it works, excellent. If you discuss it with the Student Senate, I'm sure they would most likely like it, because I've interacted with some students who would have committed suicide. But yes, luckily for one of them at least, the mental health advocate helped him out. And so he was willing to share that with me. But we have a variety of students from different cultures that criminalize mental health. So when they come to the US, for example, international students, none of us would know about Boyton. None of us know about this. None of us want to talk to anybody about our issues. But if we can see that before we even come in, and we actually took a course, we answered those questions, and we hand a credit for that, we're accountable. You're also accountable to us. That makes us engaged with this whole issue. I think in the long term, it might help. Anyways, number 2. I do know that we have the student ratings of teaching. And I know that professors, faculties, and staff are considered the first responders. I don't know if that's reasonable, but I'll say it anyways. Can we include in those questions we ask students, incorporate into those questions, that do they think this faculty or teacher has supported their mental health and well-being? I think that might be the easiest way to know if the faculty is supporting them. And then, of course, not to criminalize anyone, but if faculties, from the report, they notice, we've not been supporting them, then faculties who might choose to now go to that red book you talked about, might choose to go look at those resources and take note of them. You might assume that some faculties know about all the resources. The answer is capital N-O, no. They might have heard of it, but they don't take it serious. But if you want to make people engaged, I think you can consider this. Thank you.
May have found your replacement, Dr. Owen. Any reaction from the table?
I'll chime in, Chair.
Okay, yeah,
great suggestions. I know that the team will talk about those and other suggestions that are garnered at their summer retreat, and we'll make progress.
All right. Thank you very much. Regent Turner.
Yes, thank you. Chair Mayron, hit on, you usually beat me to the question. My big concern is, and it sounds like they do get training on identifying mental health issues in students. And the one question I have is, are they trained in identifying students that they only see online? And then when they do, and identifying in all areas, but then it sounds like, I just know that even in nursing, you've got some people that are better at communicating and dealing with stuff, and then you have others that aren't. Are they encouraged to go, okay, I identified it, but I have no idea how to talk to them or approach them? And do you have a support system amongst, do your faculty, et cetera, meet regularly to be able to lean on each other for, say, I really don't know how to address them. Could you help out? And how do you do that and also respect, in my world, HIPAA? Maybe it's your world too, that you have to.
Excellent question. I don't want to cut you off. Are you done?
Am I done?
Oh, sorry. No, you paused, Regent.
Well, it's identifying and support and being able to do it. There's the identifying part, but then there's the part of communicating actual help. And do you try to get the best person for the job? Is that okay?
My apologies, Regent Turner. You paused and I thought you were done. The Provost Croson.
Yes, I'll chime in. Thank you, Chair Kenyanya, members of the board, Regent Turner, and I'll let others chime in as well. So I do want to be careful that we are not expecting that our faculty are going to be counselors, right? They are not trained for that. Some of them maybe are, some of them could be good at that job, and others, as you indicated, maybe not. So really, this is about identifying what the challenge is, helping this and encouraging the student to go and ask for help. Again, there's very, very limited set of circumstances. They do exist, but they're very limited, where we would forcibly report a student who didn't wish to have follow-up on. Mostly it's, helping the student understand where the support is, suggesting that they might need it, connecting them, sometimes physically walking them over to the office, kind of doing the things to facilitate them getting the help they need. I think your question on online is a really interesting and important one, especially as our education is kind of moving that way. For those of us in the room who have taught online, a lot of our online interactions with students, sometimes it's by Zoom, less so, but also, in the email exchanges, in the chat rooms, in the ways that the students approach the class or express stress about the rest of their life. And so I think it would be a good thing for us to look at that training with an eye to that question. I suspect that most of it is about in-person interactions, because that is still the majority of our instructions, but I think that's an excellent suggestion to think about.
Right, and as a follow-up, if I may.
Of course.
You have to understand my perspective is that horrible end result in the emergency rooms, in the ICUs, in the mental health wards that we have. And sometimes they're the most difficult to be able, like I said, I don't expect our faculty to be the experts in it, but I hope it's a whole team effort to avoid a really bad end result.
Thank you, Regent Turner. I'll pick up where you left off. Different faculty members or advisors are going to see different pieces or different signs or symptoms or whatever. And again, I mean, right, privacy, we talked about it earlier today. We have to respect privacy, but, how are those pieced together to the extent that we can? Anyone?
Yeah, Regent Kenyana, and I know Erwin would also add to it, is that's where your care teams come into place. The plan is to have those different areas provide that information when they're seeing things, and then the care team puts it together based on the information is coming in from the various entities over that institution, over the institution. And then they take that information and pull together. We have a team that looks at it, decide the course of action of what kind of support that student needs at that point in time, and then connect with them. And then you want to?
Thank you. Chair Kenyanya, I would also add case management.
Yeah.
So we have 2 case managers on the Duluth campus who consult daily with multiple faculty to give advice. And the faculty member wouldn't even necessarily need to name the student, but then to understand, how do I make this referral and what are the resources available? There really is a network of support.
Good.
Thank you very much for the presentation, the discussion, all the questions. As fate would have it, Dr. Owen, I'm sitting here when you're doing your last presentation, so I have to take this opportunity to talk about you and thank you and let these folks know a little bit about you. I think anyone who's observed us here can see we have a special relationship, but that's not unique to us. This is how Dr. Owen is really with all students, particularly student government folks, for all the 4 years I was there. Every Monday, 6 p.m., Dr. Irwin attends the student government meetings. That's not part of her assigned duties, but something she takes very seriously. I think at first we thought maybe you were like an administrative spy in there. The chancellor planted someone at the back of the room, but came to really appreciate that and your input in all our deliberations. I can't think of an issue that we heard about, for the first time in an announcement or an email, whether students were involved in the decision or even when we weren't, you made sure to say, hey, just so you know, this is coming and this is why, and just be aware of that. And I think we all appreciated that so much. It sent a strong message. And then how you really invite us into your life. Lisa's husband, Al, Al provides our homecoming float. I mean, his truck pulls the Student Association homecoming float. Our exec team retreat is at our house on the lake. And just, I go on, but just what you've done for students broadly, but then some of us more specifically, transforming from an advisor to a mentor to a friend is really special. And I appreciate you. I know we appreciate you. I was just texting Neil. He's downstairs in a meeting. And yes, and Lisa, it's weird to call you that. I've always called her Doc. Dr. Irwin was the person who planted this crazy idea in my head to consider running for this thing called the Board of Regents. I'd never thought about it until that conversation we had. Some days I thank her for it. Some days I'm very, angry at her for it. But this is one of those days I'm thankful for it. So thank you, Dr. Irwin.
Anya, if I may, I almost wore a hockey jersey.
And now we know who to blame, too.
All right, with that, our last agenda item is information items. Provost Croson.
Thank you, Chair Kenyanya. I'm pleased to remind you of our regular report of select faculty, student, and staff accomplishments has been included in the docket for today's meeting, along with links you can follow to receive more information about them. We hope you find it valuable to learn about the items that are included in this report. Tomorrow, we'll be recognizing a number of our faculty and students and their awards, but I wanted to mention a few that weren't on the agenda for tomorrow. Dr. Michael Osterholm, professor in the School of Public Health, was presented with the American Medical Association Award for Outstanding Government Service.
Cool.
Jin Peng Wang, professor in the College of Science and Engineering, has been awarded the 2024 Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers Magnetics Society Achievement Award. This is the highest honor, in the field of magnetics that recognizes exceptional accomplishments and contributions to the field. The University of Minnesota Masonic Cancer Center was designated as an outstanding comprehensive cancer center by the National Cancer Institute, providing MCC a total of $20.4 million over the next 4 years. And 10 University of Minnesota Crookston students recently competed in the Minnesota Collegiate Distributive Education Clubs of America State Career Development Conference. 5 chapter members advanced to the International Career Development Conference, and the students brought home 5 first place, 2 third place, and 16 finalists award. Please join me in congratulating all of the accomplishments of all of our faculty, staff, and students. And Regent Kenyanya, this concludes my remarks.
All right, thank you very much. I'm seeing no questions on the information items. Thank you for indulging me in this stead of Chair Johnson today. Also want to recognize our incoming president is in attendance. Welcome. Hope you're enjoying yourselves, and we look forward to having you on this side as well. With that, we are adjourned and we'll reconvene for the Finance Committee at 2 p.m.
p.m.